Hi there, I'm Nathan Hagen. Welcome to the Working Actors Journey Rehearsal Room. We continue our Hamlet Project series as we continue in Act 2, Scene 2. We're now picking up the next section of this scene where Polonius discusses with Gertrude and Claudius what he thinks is going on with Prince Hamlet. So I'm very excited that we will continue this discussion and series as we look really deeply. One of the things that has been so exciting for me is looking truly at who are these characters based on the text, not based on preconceived ideas or notions or productions we've seen or movies or anything like that. What does the text tell us about these characters? For those who are just joining new and watching this, I see this as a springboard and inspiration from the John Barton Playing Shakespeare series that the RSC did. One of the things I love is that we're unscripted and it's totally real and raw, and you just get to see how does a collaborative rehearsal process come together, really trying to figure out, well, how do we act this play and what's going on here. For those new, what you're going to see through the weeks is not meant to be finished or final. It's just a continued work in progress. It's the next step. It's an opportunity for artists of different generations and backgrounds to collaborate, learn from one another, and to continue the lineage of honing this craft by actually doing the work. I believe the rehearsal room continues the great theatrical history of apprenticeship, where newer and younger actors, whether you are in the room right now or watching later, get to see up close how professionals work 30, 40, 50 years into this career, the questions to ask, how to explore, how to communicate, how to take direction. I love that it's never been a top-down structure. There's not one person that has all the answers. Great ideas come from all corners of the room, and I appreciate everybody being part of that experience. Now, we can also, as we've been doing here, be very fluid in casting. There's not any particular role that any one actor is playing. We get the benefit of hearing from different actors reading the same parts, and we'll start to understand or see things maybe differently because of just the different personalities and characteristics that each actor brings to any given role. And because we're online, we can involve people from all over the place as we're doing. Sometimes people haven't worked together for 30 or 40 years, as is on this call, which is great. I love that we can, kind of make it a little bit smaller of a world for these couple hours. We are posting all the sessions on YouTube for free for everybody to enjoy. So be sure to like, subscribe, click for notifications, and you can support this project via Patreon and get early access to all the sessions and a special podcast ad-free version starting at just $5 a month. Links are in the description of the video when you're watching it back later. A quick thank you to some of our patrons, Joan, Michele, Jim, Magdalen, Ivar, Claudia, Clif, and Jeff. Thank you very much. I think that's it for the people in the room. If your mic's on, you have any programs that could be making any dings or beeps, just, you can quickly close those, or any browsers with email. And if you're, when we're doing the scenes, if you're not in the scene, if you can turn your camera off, if you're comfortable doing that, then we can just focus on the people reading. In general, if audience members can kind of leave their cameras off, that would be great until we open it up to Q&A. But of course, if you have something to contribute or want to share, then please feel free. It's a very open format. So that is it for me. I think I did it just under 5 minutes, which I always strive to keep tightening it up. But thank you all for your patience. I'll turn it over to Annie and have a great session.
Great. Thanks, Nathan. Okay, so we're ready to move forward. We're heading now into the part of the play that will once again bring Hamlet into the picture. Everything we've looked at so far, we've just been waiting for him to come back after his encounter with the ghost. And we've found out things about how people are viewing him, but have not heard from him personally. And so all of this is leading up to the expectation of what we're going to witness when Hamlet comes into the play. The other thing that, if you remember, I put in my email the other day is to try to keep in mind who knows what. That the audience and we know that Hamlet has had the encounter with the ghost. Polonius does not know. Gertrude does not know. Claudius does not know. Ophelia does not know. So their perspective on things has to do with what they do know about Hamlet. And what we're heading into right now is obviously Polonius has had suspicions about why Hamlet would have a relationship with Ophelia. And then he actually comes to her chamber, and he learns that his behavior is not what he had expected. And so now he feels that it's important to bring it to the king. At some point, I'm not sure if that'll be today, I want to go back to what Polonius tells Ophelia. It's very important to go back to see what the stand the character took, or what the character has said, or what the character's relationship is with anything that's coming up. Once again, I think I've said this 100 times, is that every line gives birth to the next line. So going back lets you know the origin of where we are when we do this, rather than, and this is a caution I throw out there, I understand that one likes very much to come to a conclusion about a character, about the play. Listen, I'm sure that you folks have looked at the scholarly work that's out there. I know I have, and everybody has a different opinion. And there are some scholars who actually have the audacity to say it's this and this only. Polonius is in on the murder. Gertrude is in on the murder. You know, without any explanation. I mean, there's always a tiny little, it's taken from one line here or one line there, but to be absolute about any of it, I just don't think people understand the play they're dealing with. I think I said this again, when Randy and I were when he was performing Hamlet at the Guthrie, every 12 days, something new was published about Hamlet. It fascinates. And Shakespeare, the devil that he was, he actually puts in front of us a play that has more question marks than any other punctuation in any other play. And so there are more questions in Hamlet than answers. So what I'm hoping we can do is start to explore those areas that put forth a question that the audience can become involved with. I think we had a sign of that with Hamlet appearing to Ophelia in her chamber. We can all come up with why it happened, what he's doing, and there are as many as us. There are 100 times more people who've come to the conclusion, but we'll never know. There's no speech that Hamlet has later that says, here's what I was doing. What we do know, though, is that he's entered her chamber and he has behaved in a way that has made Polonius feel that he must take this sign of madness to the king. So I would say to concentrate on the circumstance of the play and the action that the characters have to take, rather than trying to, conclude that this is what it is because I think that's what it is. As much as I respect all of you and myself, it's not good enough. It has to be backed up by the script. That's what we have. That's our map. And then the audience has us, and they participate by saying, I wonder why he was in that room. That conversation takes place, outside in a pub, or on the way home. What do you think? And that's how we come together. That's how the play lives. Why do you think it's lived for 400 years? Because somebody realized how it should be done, and we've done it that way ever since? No, it's because it provokes questions in anyone who sees it, and those questions let the play live from generation to generation. Okay, so that's the area that I'm mostly concerned. Looking at the text, understanding what you're saying. Please take time to look up words. I do it. I've been 50 years with this play, and I still spend time looking up words. A lot of what's happening, a lot of the action in the text comes from the words. It's not the end result, because it's in the end, it's not about the words, but it is how the words describe the action the character is taking, or what the character is thinking, or feeling, or doing. But it's very important to know what the meaning of the word is. Be careful of assuming. I did this today. I told Randy that there are certain words in Polonius' speech that I assumed. I went back and looked them up, and I thought, oh, wow, I didn't know that meant that. I thought it was this. And it changes how you speak a line. It changes the content of the line. Okay, so that's something that I would suggest for everybody to take a look at. Okay, I think the first thing that we should do is read the scene. I've asked Randy if he would read Polonius. Alex, what I'd like you to do is read Gertrude. And Jim, if you would do Claudius, let's read through the scene.
What line are we starting with, please?
This is very well ended. You got it, Randy? Oh, Randy, I can't hear you. Is your mic on?
The ambassadors left, and so Polonius begins this section of the scene. Got it, Jim?
Right, thank you.
Okay. This business is very well ended. My liege and madam, to expostulate what majesty should be, what duty is, why day is day, night, night, and time is time, were nothing but to waste night, day, and time. Therefore, since brevity is the soul of wit, and tediousness the limbs and outward flourishes, I will be brief. Your noble son is mad. Mad call I it. For to define true madness, what is't? But to be nothing else but mad. But let that go.
More matter with less art.
Madam, where I use no art at all. That he is mad, 'tis true. 'Tis true, 'tis pity, and pity it is true. Foolish figure, but farewell it, for I will use no art. Mad let us grant him then. And now remains that we find out the cause of this effect, or rather say, the cause of this defect, for this effect defective comes by cause. Thus it remains, and the remainder thus. Perpend. I have a daughter, have while she is mine, who in her duty and obedience, mark, hath given me this. Now gather and surmise. To the celestial and my soul's idol, the most beautified Ophelia. That's an ill phrase, vile phrase. Beautified is a vile phrase. But you shall hear these in her excellent white bosom, these.
Beam this from Hamlet to her.
Oh, good madam, stay a while. I will be faithful. Doubt thou the stars are fire. Doubt that the sun doth move. Doubt truth to be a liar. But never doubt I love. Oh, dear Ophelia, I'm ill at these numbers. I have not art to reckon my groans. But that I love thee best, oh, most best, believe it. Adieu. Thine evermore, most dear lady, whilst this machine is to him, Hamlet. Now this in obedience hath my daughter showed me, and more above hath his soliciting, as they fell out by time, by means, and place, all given to mine ear.
But
How hath she received his love?
Well, what do you think of me?
As of a man faithful and honorable.
I would fain prove so. But what might you think? When I had seen this hot love on the wing as I perceived it, I must tell you that before my daughter told me. What might you think? Or my dear majesty, your queen here, think? If I had played the desk or table book, or given my heart a winking, mute and dumb, or looked upon this love with idle sight, what might you think? No, I went round to work, and, my dear mistress, thus I did bespeak, Lord Hamlet is a prince out of thy star. This must not be. And then I precepts gave her, that she should lock herself from his resort, admit no messengers, receive no tokens, which done, she took the fruits of my advice. And he repulsed. A short tale to make. Fell into a sadness, then into a fast, thence to a watch, thence to a weakness, thence to a lightness, and by this declension into the madness whereon now he raves, and all we wail for.
Do you think 'tis this?
Alex, it's
Do
your
you
line.
think 'tis this?
Oh, you didn't hear me?
No,
You were muted. Now you're okay. Do you think 'tis this?
It may be, very likely.
Oh, hath there been such a time, I'd fain know that I positively said, "'Tis so," when it proved otherwise?
Not that I know.
Take this from this if it be otherwise. If circumstances lead me, I will find where truth is hid, though it were hid indeed within the center.
How may we try it further?
You know, sometimes he walks 4 hours together here in the lobby.
You're muted, Maria.
So he has indeed.
At such time, I'll loose my daughter to him. Be you and I behind an arras then. Mark the encounter. If he love her not, and be not from his reason fallen thereon, let me be no assistant for estate, and keep a farm and carters.
We will try it.
But look where sadly the poor wretch comes reading.
Away, I do beseech you, both away. I'll board him presently.
good. Good. Okay. So, let's talk about what's happening. Okay. What do you make of Polonius's first speech about majesty, day, day, night, night, brevity? Why does he start off that way? Any thoughts about it?
Is he trying to like delay breaking the news? Like, I feel like he's like, I mean, it's a touchy subject. He's not that he's like accusing Hamlet, but it's tough to say your son's mad.
Yes. Yes, Nick, I think that's definitely a part of it. And I think that if you look at the content of to say what majesty is and what duty is, or what night is night, day, day, the result is going to be, your noble son is mad. Mad do I call it, for what is it to be mad but to be mad? So that connects the night, night, day, day. He's trying to get to the point that there's no description for madness. The same way night is night, day is day, time is time, majesty is majesty, and duty is duty. That's why he introduces, I believe, that that explanation, so that he can get to mad do I call it, because what else could I call it but madness? Do you see the connection?
And
Huh?
I was gonna say, is that like almost like saying day is day, night is night. It's like, to put it plainly, I'm gonna call it like it is instead of beating around the bush. I'm just gonna say what it is that I think is happening with Hamlet.
Preparing them for that, Sarah.
Okay.
They are the examples of why he can't beat around the bush. Yes. And so
Okay,
when he
yep.
puts that forth, that's why you see that colon after the first mad. Your noble son is mad. Colon. Mad cola. Because what is, so Nick, you're right. I think that it's not the easiest thing to explain to Gertrude and Claudius that he's crazy. Because they're not, in my email to you, I wanted you to look at the description that everyone other people have of Hamlet's condition. And it is Polonius who calls it lunacy. You know, Claudius says the outside, the inside are not what they were. Gertrude thinks that whatever it is, it's because of the hasty marriage and his father's death. They don't think he's crazy. Polonius is saying, however, that the rejection by Ophelia has caused an insanity, a lunacy. He's nuts. And yes, that has to be a little tough to say without any explanation. And that's why I think she's going to come in and say more matter with less art, because he starts again. Well, we'll get to that. But do you see what I'm saying about the first section?
Yeah.
You want to link everything that someone says to a reason for saying it. This character has been laden with, well, he's just an old garrulous old man who likes to talk. And even though he's saying he's going to be brief, he's not brief. But what's interesting to me, and I think Randy started to do it, is take a look at the semicolons in that speech. You know, that he is taking his time to talk about brevity. And that is part of the humor that will develop in this character, because on one hand, he's asking for brevity, but the way he's describing it is taking forever. So, Sarah, he's not getting quite to the point. He's circuitously getting to the point, right? It's going to happen again in this next speech. It's even more complicated. He's also trying to be exact. This first part is, all I can say is that he's mad, because we all know that to be mad is to be mad, and there's no definition for it. But in this next section, she's asked for more matter and less art. And so what we get here is him trying to put more matter into it. And by doing that, it becomes again verbose, overdone. But she's asked for matter. He doesn't. He says, I use no art at all. That he's mad, 'tis true. True, it's pity, and pity 'tis true. Oh, but let that go. I will use no art. Mad, let us grant. Okay, finally, we're there. Let's grant that he's mad. Neither Claudius or Gertrude come in and say, and she's the one who feels confident enough to interrupt. Neither one of them says, oh, no, that can't be. So they grant that he's okay. We'll follow this conclusion, grant that he's mad. Okay. And then he goes for, let's get to the bottom of his mad, why he's mad. But I think the more you can allow him to be specific, comes off of her more matter and less art. He thinks he's giving matter. But in a way, by him doing that, he ends up making it more complicated. That's, to me, part of the humor of the character. He's not trying to be funny, and he's not just a flustery old man who, you just get out there and you play it like, mad, let us ground him then. Well, to be mad is nothing to be mad. You miss the idea of this character. This character is going to die for his mistakes. Never forget that. This is not a comic character that is just going to go his merry way. His mistakes his actions will ultimately lead to his death. Okay? But what I'm getting at is, and again, I'm not saying it's the only way, but I'm saying that the search is to connect the dots. The search is, why does he say something? Why does a character say something? Why does another character react? I mean, I think when you, with Gertrude, Alex, when she says, came this from Hamlet, he's never announced Hamlet's name. He said, Hamlet's mad. And then he says, perpend, ponder this. And he starts reading the letter. And that's why she says, came this from Hamlet to her? He doesn't start. He has a letter from Hamlet to her. So it provokes her question. And he's saying, oh, there's hang in there. I will get to the point, So it's just to see how do we connect why somebody says something and why somebody else reacts. Does that make sense? Yeah, Liz. You're muted.
Sorry, I wanted to go back to the beginning of the speech because I think that's interesting. So we've just had the king sort of making very almost light of the Voltimand's speech, and so I have a feeling that what he says, this business is very well ended. He's sort of saying, yes, I agree, we got rid of that one, didn't we? But then, my liege and madam, to expostulate what majesty should be, does that come off that? Of how the king has handled the political thing? It occurs to me that that would be the motivation for him beginning that way.
I think that's a possibility. Yes, I think it can be played that way. And I think that the idea that here's one of the reasons that I went beyond that. Once that's introduced, is the word expostulate means to argue with. To argue with whether that majesty is majesty, that duty is duty, and that night is night, is nothing but a waste of time. If you take that idea of arguing with Hamlet being mad, it connects that second half of it. But I think you're right, Liz. I think that's an important point. How does the way the business with Voltimand affect Polonius and put the idea in his head of how to start the next line? And that's what we're looking, all of those connections. Is anybody else? Randy, do you have anything? No.
I just had one thing down the line. When you began the talk about how many questions in the play, and I was confused about the Queen saying, came this from Hamlet to her? There is no question there. It is a period. So it was interesting to me why Shakespeare put a period there instead of a question. So maybe that's down the road, but anyway, it just dawned on me.
No, I think this, you're going to find this with several lines where there's a period, even though it sounds like a question. But I think that what you want to do, and you have choices. You can look at the quarto and you can say, oh, it's a mistake. There is a question mark. And if it's in either the quarto or the folio, then you can make that choice and say, okay, it was a printer's error. However, I've also found that to take that period as if she's saying, not asking for an answer, but get on with it. Came this from Hamlet to her? Put in a period on it rather than her asking a question that has to do with him saying yes or no, her impatience.
So it pertains to more matter and less art. She's constantly trying to get to the point of all this because it's her son involved.
Yes.
Her child. So yeah, okay, makes sense.
And I'll be right with you. Let me just point out one other thing, and that is earlier on when Claudius says to her, "Do you think it's this?" I'm sorry, when he says he thinks he's found the cause of your son's distemper, I think the word is, and she says, I think it's no other but the main, his father's death and our hasty marriage. And Claudia says, we will sift him. He's not letting it sit with Gertrude. He's going to go one step beyond Gertrude to find out what Polonius has found out. So she enters into the scene already with the idea that here's what I think it is. He's saying we're going to go further. And so I think that there's a relationship with her. And again, I always feel like I have to back this up. And you want to try playing it. And if it doesn't work, you throw it out. Of annoyance with Polonius, that the seed is planted there because Claudius is willing to follow through with what Polonius thinks and virtually just ignore her response to it as a possibility. Okay, go ahead, Adriana.
Yeah, actually, that was exactly what I wanted to say, is that it's interesting to see how Gertrude is a little bit pushed aside by both Polonius and Claudius, in the sense that she's a queen and he's like, hang on a second, I'm gonna, like, he feels he has more status than her. At least that is sort of what I was feeling this time when I was hearing it. Like, wow, you don't talk to the queen like that, but I guess you do if you're Polonius. And so it was interesting that then you just said that as well. I really agree. She it seems to have a little bit less power than you would think she might have, being the queen.
Let me just say, I'm not saying even power. I'm saying patience.
Yeah.
She has less patience with this because she thinks it's one thing and one thing only. But Claudius is suggesting that it's worth listening to Polonius because it might be something else. It's the first time we've seen them disagree. And again, it's not a big thing. It's not a custerfist, it's not a big fight, but it's just a little, if you're playing Gertrude, and that's what this is all about. If you're playing Gertrude and you think to yourself, oh, she only has 2 lines in the scene, but they're important lines. Because she says more matter and less art, and that art is a capital A at the end of that line. And he defends himself. Madam, I use no art at all, and then again he goes on. She wants to get to the point. Did Hamlet send this to her? Madam, be patient, he says, because he is unraveling this. And that will bring us to the point, by the way. He doesn't tell them what he said to Ophelia at all. That is not what he said. He said he was afraid Hamlet would ruin her. He was afraid Hamlet would take advantage of her. What he's saying is what Laertes said. He's a prince out of thy star. So he has, I don't want to say manipulate because people will take it as negative, but he's fashioned the telling of it to make sure that it is not going to make him look bad or Ophelia look bad. Look, another thing I want to point out, this hot love on the wing. This hot love. Didn't Ophelia just say he is giving me all the vows of heaven? The way she described what was happening between she and Hamlet had nothing to do with hot love. It's Polonius who's calling it hot love on the wing. So that's what I mean by when you take a look at it, always go back to even the tiniest line, go back to the circumstances that lead the character to even ask the question. Now we have a relationship between the queen and the king and Polonius. And that means, by the way, Polonius is going to have to work a little harder because he's annoying her. And so he's trying, he has to follow through with, first he says, I'm not using art at all. So he tries to fill the speech with detail, matter. And then this next section came this from Hamlet. Be patient. Be patient, because what's important to Polonius is that they hear the letter. That's going to be his proof. And then he will describe how that led to Hamlet's madness. Look at the way he describes the madness. He doesn't know. He hasn't seen any of those stages in Hamlet. But he's come to this conclusion of this is what happened. This happened, this happened, this happened. When did he see it? He never saw it. So he's giving a book analysis, theory of anatomy of melancholy. He's given what was written about melancholics and how they end melancholy can lead to madness. So it's a book knowledge of it. It's not a firsthand knowledge, And that's why Claudius, now bring Claudius in. How may we try this? First he says, what did she think of his love? Well, how has she reacted to his love? Polonius takes offense at that. But Claudius is just saying, I'm hearing the Hamlet side. What was her reaction to it? But Polonius takes it one step further. What would you think if I did if I ignored this whole thing? It's Polonius who reacts to these different things that are coming from somewhat innocent place. I think it's a natural question for him to ask. Well, how did she react to it? Right? So that's the. I mean, there's so much more, but I think we have to. I can just go off. So, so let's just keep going on. Any other observations?
Yeah, Annie.
Yeah, go ahead, Robert.
Yeah, one interesting thing is it's actually been the action of Polonius that has brought this madness on. He tells us he's using, seemingly he says, while she's I have a daughter, while she is mine. So he essentially has said, forbidden her to see Hamlet, and then he's using his daughter as bait. I'll loose my daughter to him. So now he believes that he's mad to the point that he has to come to the king, and now is going to loose his daughter onto this madness. I mean, Polonius is that's more matter and less art. I mean, that's where I see this character going.
Yeah, let me, because now you've opened up a whole a kind of the next section of the play, and I think what you're right is loose his daughter. That's going to come up. But I want to let me get there first, because I think it is an important thing. He in the beginning, he's not using her. That is going to happen, and it looks like he's using her as bait. But it's a way he believes to catch to find out whether Hamlet is mad or not. That's what his intention is. And the only way to do that will be to set up a situation where Hamlet encounters Ophelia, and we'll look at your word loose, and again, we'll head into a whole explanation of that. But if Hamlet can be seduced by her, to fall in love, to want her, to desire her, that he's going to set up the situation that he, in the beginning, thought was the reason Hamlet was after her in the first place. So again, the word he uses, I think we're responding to it as, oh my God, he's using her as bait. I don't think he believes he's doing that.
Annie?
Yeah.
Annie, I think too, when the scene starts, he doesn't use Ophelia's bait. That doesn't even enter his mind. It's only when the king asks him, how may we try it further, that Polonius comes up with well, what I'll do is, since we know where Hamlet goes every 4 hours, that I'll have Ophelia. He'll meet Ophelia during that time. Okay? So that the idea of using his daughter occurs in that moment, but not when the scene starts.
Yeah, Jim and I had this conversation actually on Sunday because Jim had asked, is this plan B or is this in the moment?
You have to get to plan B.
Yeah.
Can I ask a
Yeah.
question that might have already been covered?
Go.
Oh, I'm sorry, Michele, I didn't
Oh.
see you.
I was just going to say that the one thing that really strikes me is at the beginning of Polonius's speech, he spends an awful long time, 9 whole lines, justifying about how he's a good and loyal subject and a good and loyal father. Really, really lays it on thick. I think that says a lot about his character as to what his main concern is. You know, what do you think? What might you think of me? I would never do that. I would never do that. I would never do that. And that just struck me because it was such a long.
Yes, and it goes back to what he said to Ophelia. This is why I said I'd love to read those again. When he says, "You'll tender me a fool." And part of that is you'll give me a child out of wedlock, or you'll make a fool of me in the eyes of the king and the court. You'll tender me a fool, is that meaning. So yes, Michele, that's a major concern of his. Look at why would he give precepts to his son? How to behave in France. Reputation. Reputation means a lot. And he's up for assistant to the state. He's got another promotion sitting up ahead of him. And if this is wrong, then let me have a farm in Carter's, he says. So there's a possible promotion up ahead for him. And again, I think that I wouldn't cast aspersions on him because of that. I think that he's a man who wants his reputation protected, and he was fearful that if his daughter had an affair with Hamlet, that that could harm his reputation, her reputation. And so, yeah, I think he does take that time to keep saying, I'm a good subject. I think he knows how sensitive this issue is. And then, of course, he has a queen on top of him, more matter with less art. That this, she wants to get to the bottom of it.
Well,
so, yeah, I think you're right. Go ahead.
And he also skips over the fact that by telling Ophelia to deny Hamlet access to her, he probably caused Hamlet's madness by doing that. But he skips over that. He repulsed, period. And then he moves on to make a short tale. Hamlet got discouraged by that, but doesn't take responsibility for doing it.
Yeah.
He acknowledges his responsibility when he's talking to Ophelia after she comes, in with the closet occurrence. He says, "Oh, beshrew my jealousy," right? But I thought he meant to do you harm. But he's not going to take responsibility in this instance. He kind of jumps over that. He doesn't tell the king, "I'm to blame."
Right.
He's a consummate politician.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he's a member. Yeah, he's an advisor to how government should run.
Do we know, I'm sorry if this already came up. I just realized, do we know when this letter comes from?
Yeah, okay. Let's analyze that.
Oh,
First of all, do you
okay,
have
sorry,
thoughts?
I didn't.
It hasn't
No,
come
good
up.
question.
Oh, it hasn't come up? Okay.
But it's
I've been
good
thinking
that
about
it
that.
has.
Okay.
Do you have any feelings about it or thoughts?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I feel as always when I find these questions, I go, why have I never asked this question before? And so now I'm struggling to come up with an opinion before I've thought about it long enough. But it just struck me as, wait a minute. If she's repelled all the letters, I had to go back and look. It doesn't say anything about the letter when he came in. So is this, and we know she gives him back tokens when they meet the next time. So is this from her personal stash that Polonius went and ransacked? Is it, is it the most recent letter? Did he try to give her a new? I just was curious if that is, I don't know.
I think it's a great question because one of the things that we have to figure out is when this letter was written. And what you're pointing out, Ben, I think is important. From the time that we ended with Laertes going off to France, at the end of that scene, she was told to not to be in his company and not to accept letters. Now Hamlet confronts the ghost. He meets the ghost. All right. And then the next 2 months go by, and we see that he comes to her chamber. When would he have, and he's told us he's going to erase all fond memories, get rid of everything other than the ghost. Revenge and remember me. I'm getting rid of. So when did he write the letter? One starts to think that he wrote it from Wittenberg, which would make sense that you would send somebody a letter if you were far away. This comes up in Lear too, you know. Is why does Edmund know Edgar's handwriting? Well, because Edmund has been away. And Edgar and Edmund write to each other. That's what writing is about. Letters are about. Okay? So one starts to think as a possibility, he wrote this before he even got back, and she kept it. All right? And there's another little thing to throw in. And again, some scholars have brought this up, but I thought it was worth looking at. It sounds like roses are red and violets are blue in a very sophisticated way, but it's not good poetry. And even Hamlet admits it. I'm ill at these numbers, he says. I can't write poetry. So maybe he is still a student. Maybe it's happening in a very young, early part of their relationship, you know?
Which brings up the question of their relationship.
Yes.
The length of it and the depth of it.
Right.
You know, actresses, we've all puzzled over who is this Ophelia? Who is this girl that Hamlet falls in love with? If indeed he falls in love with her. And I believe he does. You know, so what is the quality of that relationship? Did they laugh together? Did they speak personally together? Did they find a soulmate that they could speak frankly to and honestly to with one another? Because if that is so, then that's going to play when we see the nunnery scene and we see them deal with each other during the play within a play. Who are these lovers? You know,
Yep.
and what kind of pain does the situation bring on both of them?
Yes, and I think, Randy, to add to that is the idea that, and you and I talked about it, Nick today. What I read recently is that Ophelia is unlike any other young woman in Shakespeare's plays. You have women who will change their sex in order to follow the man they love. You'll have Juliet, who's willing to marry Romeo behind her father's back. You have Beatrice. Look at the women in Shakespeare's plays and look at Ophelia. Ophelia is led by her father, by her brother, by the king, even Hamlet. Ophelia has no self. And I think that's why ultimately she will go mad. Because she has to listen to so many different people. And she does, I think, again, this, you know, when we do these conversations, I believe that she does love Hamlet in her way, whatever that means. I mean, I love the fact that she says early on, this is a respectful love. He has made promises with all the vows of heaven. It's a beautiful relationship the way she sees it. It's not dirty, and it's not, I'm sorry, Mr. Browner, it's not Ophelia and Hamlet having sex while she's giving that speech. You're just simply wrong. It's not, that's not the relation, or else you just ignore the text and you do your own thing. But I think that to look at Ophelia in every scene, in the beginning, she tries to convince, she says to her brother, I will keep what you're saying in my memory. It's in my memory locked. And you yourself will keep the key of it. And what happens? Polonius comes in and says, what has he said to you? Well, there goes that key. She has to tell her father. She tries something touching the Lord Hamlet. And then Now he is going to give her
advice.
Worry about, you know? And interestingly enough, it's Gertrude that would have allowed this marriage.
Mm-hmm.
I do wish you could be Hamlet's bride. She's okay with it, you know? So that adds another little mysterious color to all of it. But she's an interesting character. And people have tried, if you look at a book called The Masks of Hamlet, he actually breaks Ophelia down into two chapters. Ophelia, the powerful Ophelia, and the soft Ophelia. I'm paraphrasing it, but he separates the two. However, I think she's a combination. I think she tried desperately to tell her father, it's not what you think. And the father says, I don't care, end it. Okay? So she ends it. Then Hamlet comes into her chamber, which, by the way, I think I tried to describe what happens in there. Is there anybody other than Horatio that Hamlet can talk to in this play that you can think of? Who else can he go? Not that he would reveal the ghost to her necessarily, but she's the one. And what has she done? She rejected him. She refuses to see him. She refuses to accept his letters. And I would go as far as saying, and I kind of want to try to lead you away from this, but when you explore what happened in that chamber, there are only two possibilities to grabbing her by the wrist. And one of them is she starts to leave, and so he grabs her to get her to stay. Or it shows male dominance. Which one do you think Hamlet was? It makes perfect sense that Ophelia was told not to see him, and she tries to move away, and he stops her. It's little things like that start to make me, at least, look at her. He looks in her eyes for a long time. What does he see? What's the one thing we know that she is? Afraid, fear. That's what he sees in her eyes. So I guess what I'm badly maybe trying to express to everyone, and I think that's why the conversation, Ben, that opens up about that letter is, and as Randy said, what is that? Who is Ophelia, and what is that relationship? Because to have Hamlet fall in love with her, she better be. There must be something in her that makes that happen. And I think we will see signs of it. But again, she's so dominated by the men in her life. Look, there's a reason there are only two women in this play. That's why I go berserk when Polonius is a woman. I think you've missed the whole point of the story. And that's not to say women can't, don't have the ability, blah, 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 blah. But you got to know the story you're telling. And the story here is about she has no mother. She has no woman in her life. She has two men in her life. The only other possibility is Gertrude. And how much time do you think she spends with Gertrude? So at any rate, I know, Ben, that was a kind of a long way around your question, but this is what I think that letter was written early. I can't find a time when Hamlet, after seeing the ghost or even mourning his father, would have written a love letter. And that is a love letter.
It seems that sometimes I wonder if maybe it's me in the listening as an audience member, but I feel like there's a lot of responsibility on Polonius in how they read that letter, because I feel like a lot of times I see it done and it's read in a way that seems like Polonius is trying to make the voice of Hamlet sound like the crazy Hamlet we're going to meet in a few minutes, and because when I really look at the letter, I'm like, oh, there is nothing. This doesn't seem like a letter Hamlet is writing in character as the distracted person. But I feel like maybe I've seen Polonius's try to deliver it in a way that makes, I think especially that whilst this machine is to him, or something like that. It just struck me that Polonius has a lot of say. The actor playing Polonius has a lot of say in how we're going to actually hear that.
Yes.
Annie gave me a good direction. She said Polonius is kind of like a community theater actor. So
Right.
he likes to play parts when he has the chance. So if for this one moment he can pretend to be Hamlet, the romantic or the lover, he'll try to do it that way. But he does it at other times too, like when he talks about Fortinbras, I guess. No,
No, we mentioned it last week with Ronaldo.
Ronaldo,
Oh, right.
right?
And this
Yeah.
gentleman and that, and Ronaldo
Right.
is
Yeah,
very
yeah.
good, my lord. And he gets so flustered that he's being complimented as an actor that he forgets what he's going to say.
I mean, after all, he played Caesar at university
yes, that's
and
going
was
to come
killed
up.
in the Capitol.
And look at his excitement when those players come in. Tragedy, comedy,
Yes, yes.
any kind of form of playing that you would want to see these. He's the one who gives the description. He's thrilled those players are there, And then he knows theater so well. This is too long.
Yes, yes.
I was just wondering, is there a chance that he fabricated the letter?
Here's my theory on that. And that is, anytime a character lies in a play, there will be a speech later on that he will say, it's like Richard III. He woos Lady Anne, and then he says, was ever woman in this manner wooed? So we know that that's what that was. And I think that that's true of lying, because I'm glad you brought it up, Adriana. To lie and to tell the truth is the same action. So you don't have to pretend to be lying if you're lying in a Shakespearean play. All you have to do is convince the other guy you're telling the truth. If you're lying, a speech or some acknowledgement of that will follow. So I would say it's not the route that I would go with it. I understand why. I think I told you last week, and I think Jess was probably throw something at me, Jesse, when I said that I thought Ophelia was lying about him coming into the closet when I was very young. I admit it, very young, but I thought this makes no sense. She's lying, but I've learned since, because it's when you come to those conclusions, you've got to be able to somehow back it up, because the audience can't read our minds. And so if the audience comes to the conclusion that he made that up, I think maybe we've taken them off the track of what he wants that letter to ultimately do. Okay, anything else that keep in mind these in her excellent white bosom, and keep in mind beautified is a vile phrase. Because I think you're going to find down the road, Polonius is going to use both those examples in, as Robert would say, loosing his daughter to Hamlet. If he's calling her beautified in the letter, then maybe she should be beautified when he sees her in the nunnery. These in her excellent white bosom. Her letters were kept in her bosom. So when I have remembrances of yours that I long, she takes them from her bosom. It's possibilities, but when you can connect the dots like that, I'm telling you, it just makes the play much more alive. We start to understand some of the choices that are made. So I get excited about that, but we won't see the nunnery scene till what, 17 years from now or whatever the hell it is. So at any rate, anything else, any other observations? Nick?
Annie, just for clarification, you talked about the Anatomy of Melancholy with when Polonius goes off. That's at a short tale to make, fell into sadness, then to a fast, then to a watch. That whole bit is him exaggerating.
Well, his giving a clinical description of what leads to madness. These are the stages, and he did this, and this, and became mad, and it ended in madness.
But
Yeah.
he hasn't seen that.
But that he's right, that he's not seeing it.
Right.
No, he's never seen. I mean, the only time we've seen Polonius with Hamlet is in that court scene. And there's no report. He doesn't say to Ophelia, "Oh, I just saw him 2 days ago and he was fine." You know, that's the. So I think that again, to take a look, and we'll take a look at it now closely, of what, and Adriana, this may be why you're feeling that, is what is he saying that is firsthand evidence, and what is he saying that he's put together because it would make the best case to convince the king and queen that something needs to be done about this. And I think that you'll find that there's a discrepancy. How much the audience gets will depend on how much we give them.
It seems like you give him an inch, he takes a mile. It's sort of like he loves the sound of his own voice enough. You know, he's acting things out. He's giving the line. We're learning so much about Polonius's character through these speeches. And that he embellishes. But I think there's truth behind. His action is honest to himself. I think he's not trying to put one over on anything, but his character sort of gets in the way of the telling, where Gertrude has to said, more less art, more matter, or whatever she's, but it's sort of delicious that we get these Polonius is being rounded out by these speeches, which is fun.
Yes. And look back to what he says to Rinaldo. He says indirections are the best way to find directions. So that's one of the things that he uses all the time to get. I think it's almost impossible for him to get to the point. I really think that he's been skilled. And by the way, I think he has helped Claudius to the throne by showing Claudius how to be indirect. And you look at Claudius's speech, and you won't wonder. And here, Adriana, here you and I will on the same track. Is that sometimes I wonder if Polonius didn't help write Claudius's first speech, because it's so carefully constructed. You know. And we've heard from Claudius that, and again, the audience wouldn't know anyway, but my point being that when Claudius says that to Laertes how important Polonius has been to him, when was he important? Would have to be in him getting the crown. What other time would he have been important? And as I said, there's some people who think Polonius was in on the murder. I think it's insanity, but again, I can see how certain conclusions are come to. Okay. Wow. I said to Randy, I don't know how we're ever going to fill 2 hours with this section. And here we are, at whatever time it is. I think we should look at it again. So would anybody like to give Polonius a try? This is new, rather than me assigning it. No. Yeah, Liz, okay.
Fall on my face willingly.
And then Terry, you want to do Gertrude? Okay, and anybody, Ben, why don't you take Claudius? I know I keep giving you Claudius, but it'll change. There are more characters.
All right. I'm sorry, where are we going from?
Right from the top of the scene. This business is very well ended.
Great.
This business is very well ended. My liege and madam, to expostulate what majesty should be, what duty is, what day is day, night, night, and time is time, were nothing but to waste night, day, and time. Therefore, since brevity is the soul of wit, and tediousness the limbs and outward flourishes, I will be brief. Your noble son is mad. Mad call I it, for to define true madness, what is it but to be nothing else but mad? But let that go.
More matter with less art.
Madam, I swear I use no art at all. That he is mad, 'tis true. 'Tis true, 'tis pity, and pity it is true. A foolish figure, but farewell it, for I will use no art. Mad let us grant him then, and now remains that we find out the cause of this effect, or rather the cause of this defect, for this effect defective comes by cause. Thus it remains, and the remainder thus. Perpend. I have a daughter, while she is mine, who in her duty and obedience mark hath given me this. Now, gather and surmise. To the celestial and my soul's idol, the most beautified Ophelia, that's an ill phrase, a vile phrase, beautified is a vile phrase, but you shall hear. These, in her excellent white bosom, these...
Came this from Hamlet to her?
Good madam, stay a while, I will be faithful. Doubt thou the stars are fire, doubt that the sun doth move, doubt truth to be a liar, but never doubt I love. Oh, dear Ophelia, I am ill at these numbers. I have no art to reckon my groans, but that I love thee best, O most best, believe it. Adieu. Thine evermore, most dear lady, whilst this machine is to him, Hamlet. This in obedience hath my daughter showed me, and more above hath his soliciting, as they fell out by time, by means and place, all given to mine ear.
But how hath she received his love?
What do you think of me?
As of a man, faithful and honorable.
I would fain prove so, but what might you think? When I had seen this hot love on the wing, as I perceived it, I must tell you that before my daughter told me what might you, or my dear Majesty, your queen here, think, if I had played the desk or table book, or given my heart a winking, mute and dumb, or looked upon this love with idle sight, what might you think? No, I went round to work, and my young mistress, thus I did bespeak. Lord Hamlet is a prince out of thy star. This must not be. And then I precepts gave her that she should lock herself from his resort, admit no messengers, receive no tokens. Which done, she took the fruits of my advice, and he repulsed. A short tale to make, fell into a sadness, then into a fast, then to a watch, thence into a weakness, thence to a lightness, and by this declension into the madness whereon now he raves, and all we wail for.
Do you think 'tis this?
It may be very likely.
Hath there been such a time, I'd fain know that I have positively said 'tis so, when it proved otherwise?
Not that I know of.
Take this from this, if this be otherwise. If circumstances lead me, I will find where truth is hid, though it were hid indeed within the centre.
How may we try it further?
You know, sometimes he walks for 4 hours together here in the lobby.
So he has indeed.
At such a time, I'll loose my daughter to him. Be you and I behind an arras, then, make the encounter. If he love her not, and he not from his reason fall'n thereon, let it be no assistant for estate, and I'll keep a farm and carters.
We will try it.
But look, where sadly the poor wretch comes reading.
Aye, I do beseech you, both away.
Okay, we'll stop
Board
there.
present. Yeah.
Good.
I have a
Good.
question about that last bit. I mean, I suppose it's probably too soon to ask it, but do you think Hamlet overhears that last bit, I'll loose my daughter to him?
I don't.
Okay.
I know that John Dover Wilson does.
Mhm.
Some other people do too.
I've done it that way, I have to say.
I know. I've heard.
Next.
I've heard it. Did you hear the question, Randy? Yeah. Did you have a? I said I don't think so, but I have to see where the entrance is, because that means that there's still a few lines before he actually comes. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I just had him sort of coming on very, very slowly with his book and then suddenly stopping because he hears them talking, but we only just see him.
Yeah. I know that some people have made the decision based on Fishmonger that's coming up. And that he obviously, Fishmonger is also a seller of flesh, besides fish. And so that they make that connection to him. Otherwise, why would he have called Polonius a fishmonger? I think that's one of the things. But as you say, Liz, I think we'd have to see it on its feet and see what the possibility of it is. Okay. There are a few things that I want to talk about in the in this scene too, that there's a progression in this scene. It starts with him, and by the way, I love the idea of slow, talking about brevity, but you did it slowly. I mean, I think there's so much to be gained from that. And I think, Polonius is funny. He doesn't act funny. I mean, it's not that the actor has to be a clown, but he is funny. I said this to somebody last week. Look at our politicians. If it weren't, our democracy weren't at stake, they'd be hilarious. And look at what the TV night shows do with them. They're hysterical because half of them can't hold a thought together, and most of them are lying. So I think that listening to Polonius, and somebody said he's a politician and whatever, but I think that all you have to do is to take a look at his sincerity, and what's outrageous about that is this is the guy who's Lord Chamberlain. This is who Claudius's court is filled with. Sound familiar? And so it's not so different from our time. It's that this is who those people who allowed Claudius to become king, that's who this court is made up of. And it's going to get worse because down the line, Osric is going to come in. And he's a progression even worse than Polonius. Okay? Okay. So, but here's the thing that I want to talk about a little bit, and that's the progression. Polonius starts with having to announce the news of Hamlet's madness. Then he has to say the cause of Hamlet's madness, and then the conclusion. One of the things I do want to point out, which I think is amusing, is that he talks about him going from sadness to lightness. Everything seems to be less and less and less, and then into the madness where now he raves and all we. So how did he get from this incredibly tranquil madman to this screaming insanity that Polonius has described? Again, I'm just planting seeds for seeing the difference between the progression and the final conclusion in that line. That's number one. The other thing is, as we move on, and he's being questioned by Claudius, and he feels he has to defend. Have I ever been wrong? Have you ever known a time? And Claudius says, not that I know of. And even Gertrude says this might be so. He doesn't get the absolute backing that perhaps he's looking for yet, but he's staking his life on it. It's no joke. Take this from this, if this be otherwise. I'm willing to die for what I believe. That's how firm I am in this being the cause of Hamlet. And he does die. And he dies because he won't let go of this. Right in her, even in Gertrude's closet, he's back there because he says, I still believe that this is the cause. And because he can't sway from it, and he's willing to die for it, we will ultimately see the result of that as we move on. Yeah, Adriana.
You know, that kind of makes me think, you know, how you're saying that only the text is what we know for sure. And if Polonius is willing to die for that as the reason, then he can't have been involved in the murder of Hamlet's father. I just don't think he would go so hard down this road and risk his own personal safety if he was, I don't know, something to think about.
I agree with you. I mean, I think, and you have to have somewhere along the line, you have to have, one would hope when you're telling a story to an audience, that it shows itself at the end of the play. That somehow we learn that Gertrude and or Polonius were in on. We don't. That we don't hear a word about that. But we do know, and we can hang our hat on, Claudius. And look at the reaction. I'm jumping way ahead. Claudius's reaction play within the play. His reaction is quite clear. Polonius still says that he thinks it's he's still going to stay on the path of Ophelia. And Gertrude doesn't think it's that either. She says, what does she call Hamlet into her room for? You've offended your father. Carrie, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I keep thinking back to Polonius saying in his scene with Ophelia, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I was wrong, right? I think he hates to be wrong.
Yes.
He hates to have made that error. And so now he's going to go 100% in this direction and say, I am not wrong. I've got it now. I was wrong earlier, but now I've got it. So
I agree.
yeah.
I think that is a part of it, because you have to just say to yourself, when somebody's saying, I'm willing to die for, listen, I think today we make things, I don't know, unimportant or light. So maybe he's just saying it as an expression. But if a character, Shakespeare's too good for this. Suit the word to the action to the word. He tells you how to act. We're going to come up on how Hamlet tells the players how to perform in order to catch the conscience of the king. So Shakespeare is a skilled actor and a stage man. He's not a scholar. He doesn't write books. He's a man of the theater, so he knows how to keep an audience hooked and excited, and he knows when he puts words in an actor's mouth that they have to mean it. Subtext comes in much later on, and if there is any kind of subtext in Shakespeare, it has to do with the feeling underlined. For instance, not a mouse stirring. I'm out here alone. It's cold. It's dark. There's not I don't even know why I'm keeping the watch, and there's not a mouse stirring. So I act it with a connection to my circumstances. But if there's not a situation where a character says something and yet the undercurrent of it is something totally different, I think you're working with the wrong playwright. I think you should take a look at Ibsen maybe and Chekhov. That's where subtext becomes important. Okay? So to be literal is not, again, it's not to say, it's about the words, but I can tell you, if you look at it as if words have life, get past definition. Do your definition dictionary work on your own, and then infuse the life. Under what circumstance do I use these words? There's a reason. I've said this before, and I know this stuff is taped, but I'm going to say it anyway. There's a reason that when you live in New York, everything is get the fuck out of my way, because everybody in New York is like this. It's rare that you hear that. Listen, when I was teaching in Hawaii, kids would say to me, "Ooh, you're angry." And I'd say, "Angry? I'm passionate. To them, it was anger. I'm a New Yorker, you know? So we use words under certain circumstances, under certain conditions, and Shakespeare does too. It means everything for Polonius to be right. I think you're right, Terry. That he prides himself in it. I think it's why he tells his daughter what to do. He gives precepts to, even though the ship is waiting and we know he's late, it's still important that you understand what I'm telling you before you leave. You know? So I think that he is, that's something that, and I think you have to play that. I guess that's the thing that I want to see the next, as we move forward, is what are the stages now of his development, even within this scene? Because you get the idea, and people have brought it up, that there's perhaps a realizing that he's going to have to announce that Hamlet's mad, so he's not quite, he's not just going to hurl it at them. He's going to use the example of brevity, and that first section is a carefully placed, I know I'm going to tell them he's mad. Then he says mad, you know, and then Gertrude comes in. More matter with less art. Now he's got to take that information. I use no art at all. That is mad, 'tis true. 'Tis pity, it's true, and pity is true. But he's trying to give all the information, all the matter now. He's trying to make it all matter. And then it moves on, and it changes with Claudius and Gertrude and their questions. How hath she received his love? What do you think of me? He's shocked by it, shocked that that question would have been asked of him. And what would you think? Oh my God, if I played the book or the table book, what would you think? He says it, and Randy, you did this, I thought you hit it right on the head when you said think 3 times. What would you think? What will you and your majesty think? What would you think? There's this idea of repetition of this that shows he's perturbed by that question, you know?
And also, Annie, sorry to interject on that note, he says later, what might you or my dear majesty, your queen here think if I played the desk or table book?
Yeah.
He addresses Gertrude there very distinctly.
Yes, that's right. He adds her into it. But again, she's already participated. More matter, less art came this, you know. So now the two of Claudius and Gertrude. In the beginning, he says, madam. He calls her madam.
My liege and madam.
Liege and madam. But now
He addresses both.
He's queen. That's right. But his progression now is that he has to now defend what he did. I don't know the defend. I would find a different action maybe, but the idea of fortifying how smart he is. No, I went round to work. I did the right thing. You know, my point in all of this is that it changes even within the scene. And for all of us to know that Claudius and Gertrude, even though they have 1 or 2 lines, they're the impetus of the change in Polonius. He doesn't just change because he wants to change or because he's Polonius and he's this, that, or the next thing. That has to stimulate. The only truth on stage is the truth between 2 actors. That's it. We have to believe that I said something that impacted you, and your response is a result of that. If not, then I'm living in my little acting world over here because this is what I'm going to act no matter what. I mean, I've even seen a production, I'll never forget it, where an actor changed his position on stage one night, and the actress still stayed in the other position talking to air rather than going over to him. but she was told, she was directed to be there, and therefore, come hell or high water, I'm going to be there. What good is it? The truth is between the two actors. It's why we spend all this time finding out what the play is about, because in the end, we got to throw it away. And it has to be given, the actor has got to live it. The actor has to live it. Terry, go ahead.
I don't know that I did it so well, but I had a little discovery as we were reading, because looking at it, reading it, I had one thought about Gertrude. And then when I listened to Polonius and he told me my son was mad, it was, it had an impact in which, that I think that's where her impatience grows. What do you mean he's mad? More matter, less art. What are you talking about? And I think that's what drives her forward in the scene is this, this is my son we're talking about. And what are you trying to tell me? Get to it.
Yeah.
So it was sort of a discovery of her impetus there that I hadn't gotten when I was just reading. So.
And then you would play, then you play that
Yeah.
to see where that goes. That's the next step in all of it. We also, I hope that everybody's getting an understanding of, there's a difference between melancholy and madness and sadness.
Right.
Whatever other terms, there's a difference. But what Polonius is saying is that Hamlet is mad. He's mentally insane. That's what's being presented here. Randy, were you going to say something?
I think, Terry, too, it's very rare to see Shakespearean characters done as if they were working on their feet in the moment, responding to the moment or what's given them. And most of the time you feel that, okay, the actors memorized the lines and memorized the blocking and is just doing it by rote. I remember one time Phoebe Brand was teaching a class and somebody was doing Iago. And she asked the actor, do you think this is easy for Iago to do? And most of the time when you see an Iago, it's just swarmy and, he's self-confident and, is just going through his thing to destroy Othello. And the actor said, yeah, it's easy for him. And Phoebe says, no, this is the most difficult thing he's ever done in his life. And that puts the character, it makes it interesting. It surprises us because the character is not set, it's not secure, it's not confident. And you're watching that character have to walk a tightrope. How is he gonna do this now? How is she gonna do this? How are they going to respond to what's just been said to them? How are they responding to the circumstance in the moment? And that's the tightrope of performance. That's what keeps us there in our seats, wondering what's going to happen. How is this character going to respond to this, this moment? So we like to give ourselves away almost, or give the ending of the play away before it's even there. So I don't know. It's a hard lesson to learn, taking things moment to moment, step by step, and not giving anything away.
I was even told that in Shakespeare, as opposed to certain other playwrights, the words are the thought. They are simultaneous.
Yep.
And that's what gives it the immediacy.
Yep. And the feeling.
Yeah.
It's yeah.
One thing about Polonius is when I'm looking at this, I'm seeing great possibilities for paranoia. Because, because I think that even if he hears the line, as of a man faithful and honorable, there's something in Polonius that might say, oh, I think that he thinks that I'm trying to get ahead by using my daughter to get in with the Prince Hamlet. I'm as I'm looking at this, I'm thinking that's a very important part of Polonius's character.
Yeah.
That he's so good at spycraft and politics and machinations that he's become unbearably paranoid.
Yes, but I think one of
As a
the,
lot of politicians.
what I would urge though, Michele, is how do you act it?
Yeah.
Ah,
You see what I mean? Because we can come to conclusions about the characters, but now with what you just said, how does he deliver the line that you're referring to? If that is indeed what we want to show about the character, or is it something that we observing it come to the conclusion about? One of the things I think that we have to keep doing is to say, what's the story we want to tell? I think I've told you that Mike Nichols, and I'm not a Mike Nichols aficionado, but I did hear an interview, and they asked him what the secret of his directing was, and he said that he would say to actors, what is this moment in life really about? And I actually had a Tai Chi teacher who once said that to me, where he said, what is what you're saying really about? And I think that makes sense to me to analyze what is that, what is this moment right now in the play? And again, that connects us to everything that's come before and progresses to what's going to come later. We're doing this work, and I thank Nathan. Listen, there's nobody else who has ever been given this opportunity, and I think it's great. But I think one of the things we have to be careful about is pulling it so far apart that we lose track of the whole and how fast the whole goes. So an audience, even though we're examining a line and saying, oh my God, look at this is fabulous, this is fabulous. In audience, what do we want? What is the story we want to tell the audience in that moment is what now we have to zero in on. Okay. Does that make sense to you? Now that's the next question to examine. What is this? What is the importance of this? And Stella Adler would say that you have to connect everything back to the title, The Tragedy of Hamlet, Prince of Denmark. Nothing happens in this play that does not connect to that. So there's no little flourish, somewhere that says, oh, Shakespeare was putting that in just for a joke or a little dance, or according to her, or the way she looked at plays, where she analyzed plays. And so I think what we want to always do is to say, what's the importance of this now? As I said earlier, for me, the importance of it is, one of the important moments is that we're setting up the Hamlet that's going to come, that we're going to see the first time after his meeting with the ghost. And this stuff that has been said about. We have certain things in place now. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern have been told about his condition. Gertrude still is hanging on to what she believes. Claudius is investigating it. But people have found the biggest thing we've learned, Hamlet has changed. He has changed. Polonius thinks he's mad because of the rejection of Ophelia, but that's all he knows. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern will ultimately think it's ambition. So they're all examining what can it be, and it's Claudius is the one actually who, as the play moves forward, will find out. But that to me is one of the progressions of the play. Where the hell is Hamlet? We've met all these characters, and what is the life of each of these characters, and how do they tie into his tragedy? Because Hamlet doesn't know that Polonius is going to tell anything to Gertrude and Claudia. Who knows what and who doesn't know? I think we have to keep reminding ourselves, because Hamlet has no idea that Polonius has met with Gertrude and Claudius. How would he know? So whatever happens to the play, that event somehow now will impact Hamlet as we move forward. So what do you think this scene is about? What's the importance of this scene?
Annie, I got a couple of, you got Polonius, who's basically, essentially what he's doing is he's character assassinating Hamlet. He's making a case that Hamlet is raving mad. However, when we see Hamlet come in, he's reading a book. I think the real critical thing here is when he goes, when it proved otherwise. And the king goes, not that I know. And then he goes, take this from this. If this be otherwise, what would otherwise be for the king and for Polonius? And then he says, if circumstance lead me, I will find where truth is hid. Where we have entered this play in the very unusual thing of a ghost being an apparition and showing itself to numerous people. But what was really strange about it was the ghost makes them swear 4 times to not reveal the secret. And here we have Polonius saying, if circumstances lead me, I will find where truth is hid, though it were hid indeed within the center. The thing that is most in the center of Hamlet is that his father has been murdered. What's really interesting too about Polonius, if circumstances...
Wait, hold on.
Yeah.
You said so much at once. I don't understand what the hell you're talking about. So let's go back. Only because, Bob, I'm trying to see how you're connecting it to Polonius and to Hamlet. I'm confused as to what you're saying. More matter and less art?
I think Polonius is using his daughter, and essentially what he says, if circumstances lead me, I will find where truth lies. And a short while later, it's not circumstance at all, it's plotting. He has a plot. The circumstance, it's not circumstantial that his daughter just happens to be where Hamlet walks. He's plotted that. So Polonius is one machination after another. And I think the real issue for the king is, what is proved otherwise? What if Hamlet is not mad? What is it? And what is otherwise? And certainly the first scene of the show, certainly the first scene where the ghost scene is setting this as otherwise. That would clearly have to be otherwise. And character assassination by a political insider, Polonius, is not going to take away from where truth is hid.
Okay, hold on for a second, because I want, one of the things that I want you to think about, I want you to start to love these characters. Every one of them is human. And if you saddle them with machinations and using and this and that, if you go all negative, then we want Polonius killed in Act 2. And what the hell are we sitting here waiting for? You've got to get to, I can't believe you're from Hawaii. Where's your aloha? Find some aloha for Polonius.
Yeah, I'm originally from Boston, so I know characters.
Okay, that explains it. But listen,
how about today? Dick Cheney went to his grave, never apologizing to anyone. The same thing with Henry Kissinger.
I get it, but in portraying these characters, we have to understand they are coming from, I don't care if it's Iago, and I don't care if it's Richard III. I think we've got to give them the benefit of coming from a place, a human place, that a want that they have. When Michele says somebody's paranoid, what's the motive of paranoia? What's the motive of getting to the truth? What's the if we can zero in on the motive, I really believe that it will keep us from casting such negative thoughts about each character. If the audience has it, and you again, if you're watching it and that's what you come up with, great, fine. There'll be a lot of audience members who might feel the same. But I think that we have to allow every audience, the character, to be a human being who has needs and wants. And by the way, I think Shakespeare is the best at this. He doesn't show you the negative. He shows
Annie, could I ask you a question?
No, wait, I'm not done.
Okay.
He shows you the humanity of the character. And we may think that humanity is only nice people, or that only you and I are nice, when I can tell you, and Randy can tell you, I can be a harridan. I can be a son of a bitch under certain circumstances. It doesn't mean that when Annie's nice, she's a fraud. So allow them dimension. Find out what makes them do what they do, the society in which they live, what they want, all of that. And I think then we can perform the play in such a way that the audience does have that mirror held up to human nature, the thing in us that we respond to. Does that make sense to you, Bob?
Yes, yeah, thank you.
I don't mean to shut you up. I just want us to be on the same page in approaching the work, because it means a lot to me, because I've seen so many productions where Claudius is so hateful from the very beginning that I think we'll just kill him. Hamlet is a guy who can't make up his mind. Rather than what I think is exciting, which is how does Hamlet kill a king and protect his soul from not killing? There are two things operating. He has to balance that out through the course of the play. It doesn't mean Claudius isn't deserving of killing because he killed his brother, but to make Claudius one thing right from the beginning. Of course, this is why everybody cuts the plays. So that's why I'm urging that perspective. Okay?
Thank you.
Anything else? Anything? Anybody?
Annie, we kind of mentioned this before, and this is more a track of Polonius with his what do you think of me? Starting with what do you think of me, and his defending it. Paraphrasing, but his defending of himself to Claudius, that what do you think of me about their relationship, Ophelia and Hamlet's relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And then we talked about that Polonius says he repulsed, which done she took the fruits of my advice and he repulsed.
Yes.
That Hamlet went away, but I guess my question is, before I go on, he's saying in that section that he's advised Ophelia to reject him.
Yes.
And letting them know. Because then I was struck before on A Short Tale to Make with all his anatomy of melancholy stuff. But I don't know, to me, this time reading through it, it struck me that if he admitted that Hamlet was in Ophelia's room, then that would look bad on his whole, what do you think of me? I wouldn't, this hot love and all that, that's why he has to come up with that.
Yeah, well, he's once again a short tale to make. I mean, he's able to avoid any of the details of what actually happened. Also that repulsed, it means that he was rejected. She took the fruits of my labor and he was rejected. It doesn't mean he threw up. It doesn't mean repulsion that way. Mm-hmm. It means to be rejected. And it's that rejection that causes the madness. Okay? Yeah. That's very important that we zero in on the rejection. That's what the madness ultimately is caused by. Not the love. Not the love, but the rejection. Go ahead, Randy. What were you saying?
I think too, Michele had brought it up about politics. People who are in positions where they have to make good judgments don't like to see themselves as failing that. In fact, they run away from having to admit that they've made a bad judgment, a bad call. Most people in leadership positions want to be recognized as making good judgment, sound judgment, for the good of the state, for the good of the organization they're leading, for advising a king. Anything other than that is not acceptable. So I think Polonius has that in common with other leader types,
Yes, and I think as long as again, when you use the word politician,
yeah,
we are already deciding whether a politician is good or bad.
Right.
You all voted for somebody today, didn't you?
Yeah.
Well, obviously, you don't think all politicians are bad. So that's what I meant, even with Robert, is that it's that, yes, you may have a point of view about the behavior of a character, but we have to act it in such a way, whether it's, and by the way, I know you're still on, I hope you're hearing me, Robert, is that, there are a lot of people who love Dick Cheney. There are a lot of people who hated his guts, but I'm sorry, but that's simply the way the world works. So what you want to look at is the behavior. And then it tells more about the people who are responding to that character than it does about the character. That's what I'm interested in. I'm interested in the audience having the freedom to respond to it the way they would, because they are who they are. Then they leave the theater and one hopes they have a conscience and they change. Jacob Adler said, never allow an audience member to come to the theater without being made better for having been there. That's the importance, to me, that's the importance of theater. I think it's far more important than I've seen a lot of people deal with it, Michele, you also reminded me when you said paranoid. I think one of the places that one can actually see that is Claudius. Because once he realizes Hamlet is on to him, that you start to see his behavior change in that he has to be immediate now with what he cares. He's going to send Hamlet to England. He's going to write a letter to make sure that he's killed. He's going. So that to me is where, okay, I can play that paranoia because there are actions now that may show that.
Well, and what I was trying to get, and I probably didn't do it very well, was the idea that in that moment, the relationship between Polonius and Claudius is how Polonius acts towards Claudius is color. So I was talking about that moment-to-moment action.
Yes.
That's the sort of the immediacy, and you can have a negative sounding character trait and it can still be rooted in something. I mean, somebody who's paranoid is also a truth seeker because they think that they are the ones who are careful and attentive enough to know that something else is going, and to have to try to find it. So it's not necessarily a negative label either. It's just it's a point of view, as you said. I like that point of view.
I get it. I understand it. And what I would urge is, again, that next step is that how do we play it?
Play it, right.
How do we play it?
Yeah.
Because that in the end is what we're all going to have to.
Yeah. I mean, I think in the delivery of the line, I fain would do so, something like that. That's you play it that way with that point of view.
Yes. Good. The other thing, I just want to say this to everyone. I've done a lot of coaching. My promise to my students is I will never lie to you. I will never puff you up because I feel you need to be puffed up. I will never tell you anything other than the truth. And I know sometimes that may sound harsh, but it comes from a place of wanting to hopefully wanting to let you know that putting it out there is something that is important that you hear. I believe is important that you hear. It's not meant to knock whatever you're saying. It's nothing other than you have somebody that you can have confidence in should you be looking for a truthful response. That's what I do. That's what my relationship with Randy has been, and every actor I've ever worked with. I think truth between a coach and a student is essential. So that's my way of that's my paranoia about what you may feel about my being harsh at sometimes, but it's part of my nature. And I think that everyone has understood, and I'm sure you feel the same way. This plays mean an awful lot to me, and I just can't be untruthful about it. Okay. Anything else? Sorry. Go ahead, Nathan. Save me.
It was
Can
great.
I
It's
ask you
great.
a
No,
question?
it's a great point. Please, yeah, please go ahead, Jim.
Annie, this line, that's an ill phrase, a vile phrase. Beautified is a vile phrase, but you shall hear these in her excellent white bosom, these. You said that this was a reference to Ophelia pulling out the letter from her bosom in that coaching session. Am I right? Later on.
Later on in the nunnery scene.
Ophelia is not allowed to be in this scene according to the folio, right?
That's right. In the folio, she's not.
Never mind. Thank you.
You think you found gold?
Nope.
I mean, I'm glad you brought it up, Nathan. Just one other thing. That is a line that has disturbed people in these in her excellent white bosom. Some people believe he goes back to reading from a letter. You know, so there have been different interpretations of that particular line. Randy and I talked about it today, and we went down the route of it just being a continuation of his being agitated by beautified, and you know, these in her bosom, these and then you look up bosom, and bosom can also not just mean you know, one's chest. It can also mean one's heart. So it's open to interpretation. Nathan.
Yeah, no, this is a great conversation, and I was just, as I've been listening the last couple hours, especially with the conversation around Polonius, for a character that often I think can sometimes be glossed over or be given a little one-dimensional treatment. I really love how serious we're taking this character, and just really looking at how serious he might be himself, just based on the text. I think it's really wonderful. And I know the word politician has come up a lot. I can't recall if we've used the word diplomatic as much. But it also occurred to me that this may need to be a second series, Annie, of how do you take some of these ideas that we're presenting about who these characters may be, and then actually try to have a conversation with a director who wants you to just be the fumbling, doddering Polonius and go, well, based on the text, here are some other ideas that we could present. It almost becomes another diplomatic conversation of how do you have those hand-wringing conversations with directors sometimes. But I think it's a good point to leave on.
You want to work?
Exactly. See, yeah, that's the other side of it. The art and commerce conversation once again. But yeah, no, this is a wonderful session. Really appreciate everybody contributing as much as you did this week. And we will soldier on. We'll continue on with this section next week. So thank you all so much for your participation. We'll see you next time in the rehearsal room. Have a great week.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Aloha.
Thank you.